Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Being a creative person comes with a cost. And I'm not just talking about artists and musicians and people that have YouTube channels or that write books. I'm talking about anybody. If you've come up with a new way of doing something or a new way of understanding something, if you've synthesized a whole bunch of data into something brand new, if you've made databases or coded, or if you've set up your business or your house in a different way, all these things are creative endeavors. If you've taken something, that didn't exist before and brought it into being, well, you're a creator. The cost I'm talking about isn't the existential one, pouring your heart and soul into your creation and being depleted after that, although I suppose that can happen. But it's when you put it out into the world. It's no longer yours. You've released it, you've published it, you've put it up on the shelf, whatever you've done, it belongs to the world now. It's no longer just yours. And the world does what it always does. Some people will love it, but a lot of people will be indifferent to it. Some people will judge it, some people will completely misunderstand it, and some people are going to hate it. The people that love it, that buy into your new process, that buy whatever it is you made, that watch, that listen, they're great. They're not the problem. It's the rest of the people. The people, I think probably the worst are the people that are indifferent. That stings the most. It can be really easy to take it personally because it's something that you created. It's kind of like your baby. You've put it out in the world, and rejection or indifference to that feels like a personal attack. It feels like rejection or indifference towards you. The more emotionally invested you were into it, whether it was a database or a YouTube video or a song, the more it can sting sometimes. And the thing that you have to be really careful of, that I have to be really careful of, is not to tie your self-worth to the acceptance of whatever it is that you create. You've worked really hard on that RPG campaign and then nobody likes it. That shouldn't affect your self-worth. That people don't like that or are indifferent to it shouldn't mean that you feel bad about yourself. But very often we get stuck in that. And what's even worse is when we look at the quality of whatever it is that we make and we judge it to be inferior. We look back on it, that's something we made a while ago, or even when we're just done with it, and we see, this really isn't that good. That can really start to mess with our self-esteem as well. And learning that aesthetic value or whatever kind of value of your creation, if it's not up to par, that doesn't mean that you're not up to par. If you struggle with poor self-esteem like I do, and like a lot of people do, that can be really, really hard to deal with. And it makes you kind of not want to create any at all, or at least not to share it. That can be really crippling and really tragic, because I strongly believe that a lot of our creativity was kind of beaten out of us. I'm kind of beating a dead horse here. In our youth when we were kids and we were creative and it got rejected by adults, or they were just indifferent to it and they said, well, what really important things to do are this. I remember many things that I did as a kid that were just kind of looked at with indifference or misunderstood, and it made me not want to share those things. Or, I still created them, but I didn't show anybody those anymore because I knew it wasn't going to be accepted. Maybe it was just too weird or too, odd. And people scratched their heads and laughed at me or laughed at it, and that didn't feel good, so I didn't want to share things as much as I did in the past. But then again, I play bass on stage every week, and I live stream RPG games on YouTube, and I make YouTube videos, so go figure. Now, there is a lot of wisdom in the idea that the act of creating is enough in and of itself. You don't need to share it with anybody else. It doesn't have to be good or perfect. It's just that you've actually worked and created something. You get the satisfaction from that. I've certainly gotten a lot of satisfaction building Microsoft Access. Do they even make that anymore? Databases. Way back in the day, you can see the results on this channel when I was comparing different RPG mechanics and doing deep dives into them. I think you probably just ask ChatGPT and get the same answer now. But it was very fulfilling, even though I wasn't necessarily sharing them, and I did a lot more that I didn't share. I've come up with bass riffs and songs and, various things that I hadn't shared with people, but just doing that was quite a kick. So it can be really cool when you're creating not to be accepted, but just to create and have fun and all that kind of good stuff. However, there is an area where this gets a little bit fuzzier. It's true that there's a lot of freedom in that point where you're no longer creating to be accepted or to get accolades. And even though the rejection and the indifference can still hurt, it doesn't have the same power to wound you or to define you. And that's something I still work on. But when the things that you're creating they're tied to things like income, or they're tied to effects that you want to get, whether it's something like you're putting together a game group, or you're trying to get more gigs as a musician, and it's not even tied to money, but you just want to be able to get more exposure and do what you love more, or you're trying to put together a YouTube channel or a business, then what you're creating, how you're presenting the stuff that you're making or doing, well, it does matter whether people like it or not, because if they don't buy into it, then you're not going to make a living. You're not going to get those gigs. You're not going to be able to put together that game group. You're not going to get that new process that you've developed, to start being used by your company or by whatever group that you've pitched it to. When you're in that kind of situation, there's this piece of advice that kind of gets shattered a little bit. And the advice being that you create for yourself, that you create according to your vision, that you don't care what other people think. And that, you're more authentic in what you create, and you're not just chasing trends and trying to create to be liked. And that's really cool, because then what you're doing is much more authentic. It's much more you. But if nobody really cares, then you're in a lot of trouble. So there's that flip side where you need to get feedback from your audience, so to speak, whether it's a YouTube audience or the people at work that you're trying to get to buy into something, or the people that you want to buy your products, or frequent your business, or listen to your band, buy your music, whatever it is. And so then you need to kind of balance both of these. You need to be true to yourself, but you also need to, listen to the feedback and give the people what they want. And being able to do both of those, not selling out, but not having your head in the clouds. Now that's a tough one to balance. I know plenty of musicians that are true to themselves and they get no gigs. But there's lots of people that sell out entirely. They're just constantly chasing what other people want. And, I couldn't be a person like that, but they also just feel so shallow and plastic on the outside. And you can look at content on YouTube, you can listen to music, bands, and it's just kind of lifeless. So somehow, you and I have to learn to create without attachment, but still get the results that we want. I need to be able to make videos and not be attached to the results, but kind of need to be, because I'd like to make this an income source. More important than all that, though, we need to get to the point where our work and the acceptance of our work doesn't affect our sense of self-worth. It doesn't define how much we're worth as a human being. Being human defines that. We don't need to let other people's opinions, influence what we think about ourselves. And that can be really tough, but that's the most important thing. When you're able to do that, not only are you much more healthy emotionally and mentally, but then you're free to create and really express yourself and not ask for permission and just kind of do the damn thing, whatever it is. And I believe, over the long run, being much more authentic, creating as yourself, that, it's much more attractive. And sometimes it just takes time for enough people to figure out who you are, or, that appreciate your worth. And hopefully it doesn't happen after you're dead, like it did to a lot of the great writers and painters. I'd much rather get the attention now, but you know what I mean. In the meantime, I try to encourage everybody that's being creative in some sort of way. With Susan's children, when they do things, I have to remind myself to say, hey, that's pretty cool, because they are very, very creative people. And, we get so much of that. It's kind of squished out of us as children because people don't recognize it. People don't encourage it. And, one of the biggest parts about being human is being creative. It's that, we're different than the other, I hate to say it, we're different than the other animals, but what makes us kind of special is that we create things. And that's just a beautiful part of the human existence. And it's tragic when we stop doing that and we live a dull life because we feel like we're going to be rejected. Don't get worried about that. Make your stuff, make that cake, whatever it is that you do, keep doing that. I wish I had all this figured out, but I do not. And I'll tell you that the YouTube creator journey is one that can be a little daunting when it comes to that, especially when I think something's really cool and it flops, or the people don't care. The negative comments I really don't care about as much as the indifference. It's like the Cthulhu's mythos. They're indifferent, so that's spooky. Anyhow, thanks a lot for watching. I would love to hear your comments about this. Are you a creative person that's going through the same things? Do you just not care what other people think? I would love to hear all of your experience. And thanks for watching. You can always support the channel by the super thanks, which is down there somewhere, or liking the video or subscribing. That really, really helps. And I'll put a video here about something really relevant, and that's really cool. Take it easy.